Let's talk Tanya for the 14th of Tishrei. In yesterday's Tanya, we started chapter 21, which is a letter that Alter Rebbe sent us Chasidim, asking the Chasidim not to delay their bringing their money for the fund for the needy in Israel until the end of the year, because the money was collected once a year, but rather to make payment plans and to bring the money to the person in the city in charge of the fund weekly or monthly. And yesterday, the Alter Rebbe explained one reason for that, and that is the idea of zrizos, the importance of swiftness in doing a mitzvah, excitement, and not to wait till the last moment. The reason the Alter Rebbe gave yesterday really applies to all mitzvahs. Every single mitzvah that we do, we have to do it with zrizos. Today, the Alter Rebbe is going to give us another reason, and this reason is very specifically associated with tzedakah. A reason why not to wait till the end of the year, to give all the money at once, but rather to make a payment plan and to give as frequently as possible. And Alter Rebbe cites the Rambam in his commentary on the Mishnayos, and specifically on Pirkei Avos, chapter 3. The Mishnah tells us, V'hakoil lefi reiv hamaisa, which means everything depends on the volume of the deed. And the obvious question is that what's important, the volume of the deed? How about the greatness of the deed? Shouldn't we talk about how great the mitzvahs are? Or is it about the number of mitzvahs that a person does? And the Rambam says, yes, it's about the number of mitzvahs that a person does. And specifically, the Rambam says, we're talking about tzedakah. The Rambam says, imagine the scenario. You have a person who gives $1,000 to a poor person. Another person gives 1,000 poor people, each one of them $1 over a course of 1,000 days. Now, both people gave $1,000 to tzedakah, but there's a big difference. The person who gave tzedakah 1,000 times, that person has refined their soul to a much greater degree, because the midah, the trait of giving, has become ingrained. As we know that our actions impact our psyche and impact our personality, and this person is going to become a more refined and a kinder person as a result of giving tzedakah 1,000 times. The other person gave the same amount of tzedakah, but it doesn't have the same impact on the soul. And obviously, the Alter Rebbe is saying the same thing here also. You can go at the end of the year and give the entire amount that you need to give annually, but the fact that you're going every single week or every single month to give the tzedakah has a much greater impact on your soul. And the Alter Rebbe says there's also a Kabbalistic analog to this. And that is that we know the Shekhinah, which is the source of the energy for all our worlds, it is reliant upon the attributes, the divine attributes that are higher than it, in order to receive the energy that it has, which in turn then flows into all of creation, into our world. This is always true, and even more specifically during Galus, when there's what's called Galus HaShekhinah, the exile of the Shekhinah, and the Shekhinah, so to say, has fallen to a lower level and is even more reliant upon the flow of energy from above. In order to have this flow of energy, we need what's called a yichud. A yichud means a unity. We need to unite the Shekhinah with the higher attributes. And how do we create this yichud? Every time that we give tzedakah, we are, so to say, opening up the valve and allowing the flow of energy from the higher attributes into the Shekhinah, which ultimately filters down here into this world. Every time we give tzedakah, we're opening up that valve and allowing for that flow. It doesn't make a difference whether it's $1 or $100 or $1,000. And that is the advantage of giving tzedakah in multiple times, that we're creating multiple yichudim. We are making this unity multiple times and adding more and more energy and increasing the flow into the Shekhinah and ultimately into our world. And the Alter Rebbe says that these two ideas, this idea of the Shekhinah and the idea of the Rambam, go hand in hand, because in Kabbalah, the Shekhinah is called the Nefesh. It is the soul of our world. The Rambam talks about the refining of the soul. It could be that we give a lot of tzedakah, we refine our own souls. We're also refining the greater cosmic soul, which is the Shekhinah, through bringing in the flow of energy into it. Now, we're finished this chapter, but I need to make somewhat of a disclaimer based on what, the Rebbe's commentary on this chapter. So one might say, okay, so let's say I made a pledge to give to my synagogue or to a yeshiva or to a poor person, I'll give them $1,000. I'm not going to give them, write them out a check for $1,000. Every single week, I'll give them $10. And this way I'm doing what the Alter Rebbe says here in this chapter. The Rebbe says, no. Go give the $1,000 right away. Why is that? Remember what we learned yesterday about zrizos. The importance, the passion, the excitement of doing a mitzvah. It's not zrizos to say, I have the $1,000 right now, but I'm going to give it to you in increments of $10 over the next 5 months. And then, besides for that, there's the fact the recipient of these funds needs it now, and you're pushing it off simply because you want that refinement. The Rebbe says, the Alter Rebbe is talking about a very specific instance over here, and that is that the tzedakah collector was coming by once a year to the city. So therefore, over here, it wouldn't hurt to go on to make that payment plan. Instead of going and giving it once a year when the collector comes, you give it throughout the year. So here we have the advantage of giving many times, but it doesn't come at the expense of zrizos. It also doesn't come at the expense of the recipient being denied of the funds when it needs it. So whenever we have that kind of circumstance in our house, it doesn't come at the expense of zrizos, and also where the recipient won't be harmed by it, we should try to give in installments to the extent possible. And on a practical level, that means that to walk around with change in the pocket, and whenever you see a pushka, you throw in some money. Instead of just saying, I'll give my tzedakah once a week, I'll write out a check, giving tzedakah more often is the idea that we're talking about over here in this chapter, and realizing that the more often we give tzedakah, the more we refine ourselves, and also the more energy we bring into the world through the Shekhinah. With this, we've concluded this letter. Tomorrow, we're going to start chapter 22, another letter of the Alter Rebbe, which contains in it a variety of topics.